Welcome back, and we all must unite in truth, not in politics nor religion. Then together we will save America. Hello, everyone. I'm John Michael Chambers, and welcome to Intel and Insights with Juan 07, published every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. I also publish a monthly one-hour program, The 40,000-Foot View. I encourage you to absolutely view May's episode. Please visit and bookmark johnmichaelchambers.com and my Rumble channel. Click that follow button to view all these episodes. Also, be sure to visit thejennifermack.com and avail yourself to an arsenal of films, books, and swag for the MAGA movement. And by the way, on my website, I archive all these broadcasts with Juan 07. When you get there, you'll see them. The ones you've missed, you can go back and listen to them because much of, while a lot of what we're doing is timely, much of what the wisdom in Juan's life experience is evergreen. So please go back and review these broadcasts if you've missed them. Now, Juan has been serving this nation since the time of Ronald Reagan. He's very well connected. I will leave it at that. His clandestine assignments and self-imposed directives, many which are unknown to the public, play a critical role in protecting this nation and its interests for decades. A good friend and most valuable voice and resource for the new media. Please welcome back each and every week our good friend Juan 07 there in Japan. Hey, Juan.
Hey, how you doing there, John?
I'm good. We're on the same continent right now, and really, I don't know how many hours away, but probably just a few flight hours away from Thailand to Japan. So welcome to the neighborhood.
Well, the reality, John, and people have to understand that the reason you're in Thailand, the reason I'm in Japan is we had to move into the future. And so we're reporting from the future for your listeners. We're hours and hours and hours ahead of them, and we'll know what's happening next.
Yes, we do.
You got to listen to us because we're already here. The date line, that's right. So I was dealing with some of my staff earlier today, and they're just finishing their Monday, and I'm just finishing my Tuesday in a week. And so they're, I teased them about the fact that I'm in their future right now, figuring out what's happening next. So
that's right. So what's that? I lost it. But anyway, welcome to the future. And here we are. Actually, I'm not an expert in the subject of time by any stretch, but I think Buddha and many others, and certainly the scientists and so forth, I believe that one of the biggest lies is space and time, and it's way out of my league to even get into this subject. But I've come to the conclusion that all that matters is the present, and the future will be the present when it arrives. So if you haven't figured out the present, the future, planning for the future is useless. But anyway, having said that, I want to launch into a different subject here. This is part 2, folks, of NESARA GESARA. Part 1 you'll find on the archives of my Rumble channel and johnmichaelchambers.com. I think it was originally titled Debunking and Clarification of this very subject. So while there's about a dozen or so, almost 15, 20 points that I gathered from narratives that are out there on NESARA GESARA. Last month we covered about 10 points. We're going to cover some other ones here. So let me just jump right into one of these questions, Juan. Give us a thumbs up at the end of each of these questions, or a physical thumbs down, just to keep it fun and simple. There's a lot of, I don't want to say division, but just a lot of different viewpoints on this subject. And I know a lot of people that have invested small fortunes in the Iraqi dinar and the Zimbabwe ZIM dollar due to the hyperinflation over there, but due to this reset, that we've been talking about for 15 years here. Will the Iraqi dinar and the Zimbabwe ZIM dollar actually make millions and millions of dollars for those that have invested in it under the widely promoted and heavily followed scheme upon the reset? What's your take on that playing out, and why will it or will it not?
Well,
we've got no connection to you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. really
from
intermittent Wi-Fi.
previous, as I think the problem is that, well, let's, I have good signal here. Let me just look at that real quick again. Gosh.
It's working now.
Okay. So a very quick recap. In the if you were to push the types of volumes of currency or capital into the system, regionally or globally, that these people are talking about with, say, the dinar, or the ZIM bond, or several other currencies also, as a payout. And the idea is that there's international agreed upon law within the monetary exchange system that requires certain types of payouts in kind based on the way the agreements were written. For example, before America went in to Iraq in the first place, and the Kuwait situation, etc., the way that the money had to be exchanged, with the oil backing an oil resource of Iraq, for the payoff. I'm making a very complex issue as simple as it can make it to go through it quickly. You can get bogged down in all minutia, but at the end of the whole equation, you're talking about flooding the world with an immense number of dollars to pay off all of the obligations in some outrageous manner, to rectify the accounts based on these agreements on who owed what, for the dinar, the ZIM bond, or other things. The super short side to that is that if you were to put that much money out into circulation in that way at that time, you would cause massive inflation. For example, one of the people that I've dealt with at different times in the past was going to buy a 747 and a 50,000 acre ranch and help veterans and all sorts of things. And part of the deal is you have to put together, how you're going to spend the money to help the world when you get it, based on the way these laws are written. And so there's going to be a bunch of people that are smart enough to have bought these DNR and ZIM bonds, etc., and they're going to make massive amounts of money. Well, the reality is, if you flood the world system with the kinds of numbers that they're talking about today, that 737 might cost you $30 or $50 million. In a hyperinflationary world that would exist based on that, it'd be like the Weimar Republic. At the end of World War I, the dollar traded on par, 1-for-1 with the mark and the German mark. And yet, 15 years later, the mark was, 1 billion to 1. A whole, basket of marks wouldn't buy the basket was holding the marks. That kind of hyperinflation in this kind of a situation, the 747 you're going to buy for 30 or 50 million might go for 30 or 50 billion. And then where are you going to find somebody to work on it? How are you going to pay them? Because everybody's going to be a gazillionaire or totally poverty stricken. It in short is a non-sustainable situation if you're talking really ultimately about collapsing the currency markets if you were to do this. Second of all, and I mentioned this in the previous show, but we have to start somewhere and make sure that if anybody is just showing up, they have a point of reference. Secondly, it's like football. Well, what kind of football? Are we talking European football? Are we talking soccer like the World Cup plays? Or are we talking NFL football? Are we talking about college football where the rules are different? Are we talking about touch or flag football, where there's no tackling involved. There's lots of different rules that apply. So as soon as you get into this monetary system, now you're talking about Federal Reserve type systems that are what the dollar is considered a international reserve currency, as good as gold. And so the obligations to pay off these debts in dollars related to what happened in the Iraq War or other things going on in Africa, etc., presumes that we're playing by a certain type of rules. But at the end of the day, were these rules made in heaven? Were these rules existent back to the time of Adam and Eve? No, they're the rules of men. They're, it's like in playing cards, rules by Hoyle. Okay, so everybody has an agreed on set of rules that they're going to obey if you're going to play cards this way, whether it's gambling or other stuff. And at this moment in time, we have certain agreements on the rules. With what you and I talked about just last week, where we discussed a world with a full stop, a reset, a restart, the video recorders flashing 12, 12, 12, 12. We have to reboot the whole system, okay? Will we continue on with the rules of these monsters that have hijacked the world, stolen elections around the world, put the world on the precipice of nuclear war with what's going on in Ukraine and elsewise? If we're going to have to do a reset of some type, does it include resuming playing by the pre-existent rules, or is there some type of a change in the rules, taking some players off the table and restarting, but clearing the books? In fact, let me just say this. You can say that you can't proceed without doing it because it's by international law that everybody agrees to, that these accounts are going to be settled and balanced and paid off and everything else. Again, it's like Capone and team have gotten into office in Chicago, and they now change the rules that it's okay to murder and rape, as long as you're a club member, as long as you're a made guy, and that you only do it with knives and slit the throats of the bad guys, because if you shot a bullet, it might hit an innocent bystander on the street. So we want to have civility in the neighborhood. So only made guys can kill people that they want to kill, but they have to use a knife to make sure they don't accidentally kill the wrong person with a stray bullet. Well, does that make any sense? No, you've got rules that they've agreed on, but it's within a criminal element. The way that America itself was hijacked in large measure was with the takeover of the monetary system and the tax system, with this these private clubs. Federal Reserve is a Puerto Rican corporation. IRS is a Puerto Rican corporation. Courts have found. Okay, what are you talking about? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my whole life. Well, it's true. So you have a private little cabal that has hijacked these operations that constitutionally, if you want to be a purist, and remember, when you're talking dinar and ZIM, all this other stuff, and other currencies, by the way, it's not just restricted to them. But when you start talking about them, the people, they want to be sticklers for the law. It's got to be done this exact way. You got to dance, ballet. It's not, some other kind of dance. It's a very precise one. And so you're real sticklers for it. Okay, well, if you want to be a stickler, what is the agreed upon form of currency that the American people agreed upon and the states agreed upon between each other at the foundation of the country? Remember, this union of states, this republic, before the various states would sign on to join this union. Their concerns, the smaller states, smaller populations, were concerned that they'd end up getting run by the bigger states with larger populations. They'd just be vassal states. So they got certain things put into the Constitution that protected them where they had maybe a lot of land, but a very small population, to protect their future. When this was done, they wouldn't agree to be participants in this union of states until they had certain protective things put in place. One of the most critical, and these sticks on the GESARA and NESARA got to understand this. One of the most critical was, what is money? And right there in the Constitution, it's gold and silver coin. Has to be minted in a certain way. Has to be certified, registered, of a certain agreed upon value. And the people that would mint the coin within these government positions, if there was any coinage that failed to meet a certain quality of purity, of weight, that person to be prosecuted for putting out coin that was not didn't meet legal requirements by weight or purity. So they were very, very careful. What money was very highly regulated and very precise. When you got this Federal Reserve Act put in under very, very questionable circumstances, and some people have done some amazing work to flesh out what actually occurred, whether or not it even happened lawfully. When you dial that in, it hijacked, it changed the Constitution. Could the legislature of the United States change something that was written in the Constitution with a simple vote, the way that they did, on the law? No, they couldn't. In fact, that's been debated for a long time. If you're going to do a reset, how far are you going back in the reset? Are you going to go play by these rules that have been put in place ever since by these hijackers, by the Capones? A murder's okay as long as you do it this way. It's only allowed between certain hours of the day and, under certain circumstances. But other than that, yeah, it's okay. We allow it. Well, they murdered, took over, hijacked, kidnapped the lifeblood of America. I use a strong term when I say murder, but excuse me, they have taken the life energy of generations of Americans and hijacked it to their private corporate purposes and people all around the world. Because your money represents just that, your life energy. When you exchange hours of your day, hours of your life for that paper, and then you exchange it with other people, we use that medium of exchange because maybe like one of the people I was with a few weeks ago, you grow sturgeon in a lake in your backyard and allow people to come in and catch them and eat them. And that's how you make your living. I like sturgeon, but I don't want it every day week. I don't want only sturgeon. There's other things I might need. I might want a fancy car or a tractor. I might want, some chips, a nice salmon sandwich or something. But I don't want the sturgeon. So if I want to do business with the guy that maybe doesn't want what I have, whether it be fuel or my own labor, I have to have a medium of exchange, something that he's willing to take that I can get intermediary, just like the guy with the sturgeon. Okay, well, he gets money for his sturgeon. That's a medium. It's an intermediate holding position. Other people recognize that intermediate position and accept that money for gas, electricity, roofing material for his house. We have to have some type of a medium of exchange in our modern society to, have division of labor and work.
Mhm.
This group that hijacked the operations created their own paper currency and controlled the printing of it and managed the bank that do the trading with it. And that's why they can decide if you get to even bank with them. We've had a number of people who've had, oh, there's a rare car right there,
Mhm.
do some trading. What happens is they control that you can bank with them and they can shut people down anytime they want. Why? Because it's a private club. How can the bank shut me down? Isn't that a public thing? Yeah, but they're a private institution and it's their money that you're trading in their private system. It's their monopoly game.
Mhm.
And they actually own and control it. We have federal regulators that can come in and slap them back the side of the head if they get too far afield. But when you have a captured Congress that's afraid of them and afraid of not getting their next allocation for whatever mischief they want to do, they have leverage on them. If you're looking at a reset for the world, I would contend that, for example, in the GESARA and NESARA crowd, they're thinking too small. They think they're thinking big. They think they're seeing huge. They're understanding the whole world's going to pivot on this. No, and hell no. You're so in your lane, you're so constricted in your thought that you cannot envision just how broad and extensive what has to happen in the world to recapture control of the world has to be. Um, uh, we're going to take out monsters at numerous levels. It's going to be a type of epic of biblical proportions that most people, it's just never, ever been conceivable for them. Does it stop what we have to do? No. Every parent has had to make decisions that children, even if they be adult children, may not fully grasp why. But you have to do it because you have that life experience. You have that additional knowledge. Unfortunately, they're still in your roof. They're still in your household. You got to do what you got to do, whether they grasp it at the time or not. And it's to save their life, save their future type of a decision. In this GESARA NESARA, they're actually thinking too small. They're in a bubble of understanding that doesn't encompass the full magnitude of what's just ahead. They don't understand that they've been conned, and most of the people. Let me just add this: most of the people involved are extremely well-meaning. I remember when this first came up in the early '90s, and people were, get some dinar. It's going to really, go up and have all sorts of things. And I this was when it was not very developed as it is today within some of these communities. And I kind of explained some of this. People just blow you off. You don't know what you're talking about. You got to do this. You got to be part of it. You're going to make so much money, and it's going to be a big deal. They were in their bubble, and the bubbles continued to grow out, blow up, and get bigger and bigger. Like any classic bubble, there's a point where the bubble blows. Okay, the tulip crisis being one, and numerous other things have happened over the years, over many hundreds of years. This is similar. For reasons that they can't even necessarily comprehend, the physics of which they don't fully grasp in the monetary physics. It won't happen the way they've been sold. It is a Ponzi scheme at this point in time. And it's based on air. It's based on rules that if you suddenly nullify those rules, if you suddenly take the various players say, we're no longer playing college football anymore, anywhere. The rules have changed, and we're only playing, based on the NFL, we're only playing European football style rules or World Cup soccer type of rules. Well, everything you know about how to play the game, even the shape of the ball, suddenly changes, and it's no longer relevant. We're going to have a reset across America, which is going to affect the whole world, which most people cannot even begin to fully grasp the magnitude of. They just don't have a point of reference. And I could literally spend hours and hours breaking it down zip code by zip code. But for most people, they either wouldn't hear or they wouldn't understand. And it should be sufficient just to say, okay, you want to do it, don't bet the farm on it. You want to put a little in there, it's like other investments. Okay, don't bet the farm on it. Put a little there, maybe Juan doesn't know what he's talking about. And you want to go prove me wrong. Okay, well, just leave yourself enough room. Either tangibles that if it doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, you still survive. And if it does go the way you're going with the numbers that these people are throwing around, shoot, you shouldn't have to have more than a few hundred. Don't bet your whole world on it. You get greed. I got to have $100 million. I got to have, $10,000 in ZIM bonds and dinar, so that I have enough down the road. In fact, I had somebody that I have tremendous respect for, somebody that served in a very high position in a prior administration, who's a pretty smart cookie, that was, wanted me not too long ago to make a loan based on their dinar that they had, and they'll be able to pay me back way more, in just a few months when this all goes over. But needed to do something with some property, and I had to have this exact conversation with them and kind of work through it. And I was actually, it was a bit troubling for me, because this was somebody that I felt was a pretty savvy person, and it was actually, I don't want to say embarrassing, but it was painful to have to go through on paper and just crunch the numbers, just sit there and go, okay, so you're saying this is what you have, this is how it's got to happen, okay, and then this is the numbers you're going to have, okay, based on what you have right now. And I think they have like $100,000 current value of dinar. So think about that. They've taken $100,000 US. They've been collecting it for, almost 3 decades now, and buying it up every chance they had. This is their retirement fund. And when they're done, they'll be one of the wealthiest people on planet Earth. And then they just need a few $1 million loan, because it hasn't quite happened yet. But as soon as it does, then they'll take really good care of me. If you don't see that as part of a Ponzi type mentality, then you're missing the boat. And lots of other people are being baited in. It's just $1,000. Take a swing at it. It's a lottery ticket. If they had done other things, you better look. Gold and silver have been horrible investments. I advised people when they closed the silver window. I told people the silver window was closing, many years ago, and people thought I was nuts. Been around for a couple hundred years, and talked about it publicly, and then it closed, and that was shocking to many people. But at the time, I said, I was very, very outspoken about it. Don't get sucked in. They're going to churn silver. They're going to increase the amount of paper silver. I was very precise and exact. The interpretation that most people had was that now silver was a highly controlled value by groups behind the scenes, that it was going to suddenly spike up to unimaginable highs. And there was stuff going on in certain countries, Canada for one, where they printed $100 billion of silver coin with, very high face value. And they were in an economic situation at the time. And the coin was never circulated. It was left in the storage lockers for an emergency. But there was a lot of concern that silver is going to go to the moon. I said it's not going to the moon. It's going to stay in very tight trading ranges, and they're going to churn it. It'll go up, it'll go down, it'll go up, it'll go down, and they're going to take the money out of the speculators and rip them off because people keep getting baited. It's going to the moon. It's going to the moon. It's going to the moon. And it's not doing that. If you're going to do anything, you offset those bets just like the big guys were doing, Barrick and others, selling shorts and futures and making the money on the trades, which they do with their own inventory. And that's exactly what has occurred. There is a moment, though, coming here shortly where that game is going to come unglued, and you're going to see a radical jump in the value of silver and gold, and that's been happening. And the reason it happened is because not because gold and silver are changing. And this applies to GESARA and NESARA. Just listen to me for a second. The classic understanding of silver and gold is that they do not change in value. What changes is whatever you're trading for it. If gold goes up in price, it's not because gold went up in price. It's because the value of the currency you're trading for the gold has gone down or up.
Yes.
Example, gold coming into the time of the Weimar Republic collapse. Did gold change value? No. The amount of the currency you needed to buy an ounce of gold went up radically. Went up, 1 billion times before it was over with. Why? Because the paper wasn't worth the paper money wasn't worth the paper it was printed on. Literally. Okay. So gold and silver aren't really changing in value. That is why the Constitution used gold and silver coinage of a very precise, agreed upon weight and purity as the basis for the currency of the country for exchange either way. As the Bible says, just weight and measures.
Yes.
No little secret thing. You would have to trade, say, grains, and you would have a cup that was a certain volume, and you would weigh that cup, and you'd have a certain weight, and the weights that were used to weigh it had to be agreed upon by the king. That everybody was being square and honest, and if you had unjust balls, weights and measures, or cups, volume size that were just a little off, that was a criminal offense. For years, for example, why do we have the fluting on the sides of the coins in America? Because back when your coinage was still real silver, bad guys wanted to come in and they'd scrape a very tiny amount off the edge of the coin. And over thousands of coins, they would get a certain amount of value or money, okay, of silver weight, grinding the edge off the silver coin and just pile up, and you have a little pile of silver. They put that fluting on the edge so that if somebody ground the edge off, that rough edge that's on the edge of the quarters and other 50-cent pieces, dollar pieces, etc. If somebody had scraped it off, you'd see it. And they couldn't duplicate that easily with scraping off. That was actually done by the Chinese, by the way. They'd figured out how to, put people together to scrape a small amount off the coinage. So the whole point is that it had to be a certain weight and a certain purity. And then they did things to help stop people from damaging it, stealing it, diluting it various ways. And of course, historically, and this goes to the GESARA and NESARA. So just think about what I'm telling you. When Rome collapsed, in the years leading up to Rome's collapse, they went from pure silver and gold coin to diluted, and they started adding in other metals to stretch the coins. People had become accepting of the coins, but then they changed the purity, diluting it with other metals. It still looked the same, but it wasn't as pure. Eventually going to just a facsimile of the original pure silver or gold with other metals. And that was associated with the fall of the Roman Empire. Why? Because they didn't have the trading power into other countries, couldn't sustain it, and trade went other places because people didn't want the Roman coin anymore and the military that came with it.
Mm-hmm.
What happened after President Kennedy was killed? Not only had he tried to put in the silver back paper currency run by the Treasury, not by the Federal Reserve. Again, think of GESARA and NESARA, Dinars, ZIM bonds. You have a Federal Reserve currency, and Kennedy came in and tried to put in a silver currency-backed currency like we'd had for many, many years. And as soon as he was dead and Johnson was in office, they went out and bought back all of that silver currency, silver-backed paper, and began to shut that project down. They didn't want that out in circulation. And anywhere it showed up in the banking system, confiscated. They'd replace it with other currency that was the Federal Reserve notes. Our currency, the 64 silver coin, Kennedy $50, that's the last year of the pure silver. And then after that, it's a diluted wafer with the image that was there, but not the substance after the fact. The allowing the system, the machine, to be diluted worldwide with this incredible volume of dinars and the money that would come from it. There's a very rare car there too. My gosh, that's a rare one. Yeah, that's from the James Bond film. No, it was not Doctor No. No. You only live twice. You only live twice. Yes, with the beautiful Japanese girl. Hers was a convertible. That's actually a hardtop there, but a very rare car. And I might enjoy that for a little change there, John. But no, that they're diluting the currencies. This would be a way of forcing a whole bunch of dollars into the worldwide system. And lastly, the last thing I'll say on this, as I said before during the previous broadcast on this, but it's very important to point out here again, in concluding this thing about the GESARA and NESARA. This was somebody else's plan. This is what they intended to do in order to take over the world. They were going to have this event, had Hillary won, where they'd have moved us to various crises within the monetary banking world. It would have forced the world into this chaos, this catastrophic moment. And the final blow to the dollar would be this paying these debts. But the problem, and think about all of you people, most people don't know this that much about this whole GESARA and NESARA thing with the dinar, for example. But those of you that are in that loop, you've made these incredible documents that show how you're going to spend the money. And 90% of the money has to go to charity, goodwill, some project that's going to save the planet. if you will. So you've done this extensive documenting. You've hired specialists, or you've done all the research yourself to lay out how the plan is. You're going to go in, you're going to have hours to pull it off. You'll be called in, and you're going to explain how your system is going to help save the world. And some banker representative is going to approve your plan that meets all the criteria, and then the money's going to be deposited in your account. Who's making those decisions? Who's drawing up those rules? You understand that behind the scene, at every level in our society, what we're really fighting right now is a criminal cabal, a criminal group of crime families, specter, if you will, from the James Bond films. And what they're doing is they're going to magically have their relatives, their friends, their co-criminals be the ones that come in with a perfectly put together plan. And they'll have been, picked in the lottery of life, and they'll have heard about it just in time. You'll end up showing up at the bank and the doors are already locked. You'll end up getting there and you won't have put one dot in the right place somewhere, and it'll be rejected, and the window is closed. And you're so close. Okay? But it's not going to happen. And then the handful of people that are like you that may innocently have supposedly got it. I remember as an auction, I mentioned in some previous show, where somebody had salted in some jewelry, some diamonds at a very wealthy estate auction in Montecito, and there by Santa Barbara. All the cars that were there, and the amount of money that was going to take place in this auction at that time was a very large amount. I think they had $20 million went through there over like a 3 or 4 day period. There was so much stuff to be auctioned off. And so they were salting some of the goods with fines. And I remember early in the day, the auction been going for a bit, and this lady coming out, and she's so excited, and she has this bag, and she's opening it and showing it to everybody. And it had a couple little diamonds in the bottom, and one's really big. And it was in a box that she bought. She has her chauffeur aide following her along. And so she bought something that she thought was only worth some small amount of money. And then in the box, nobody caught it, was this very valuable little package with diamonds in it. And so she's going to put this in the car right now. And they go down to her car and put it in. Then she's going back and buy more. And she's sending her help to go to the bank to get more cash so she can buy more at the auction. That was all theater. And it was by a very famous auction house. And it was all theater. But they're reputable and reliable and everything else. It was theater. And it was obvious theater if you understood. Look, Nino and I went to, took our spouses and a friend with us to a magic show in Las Vegas last year. And at that show, the person doesn't call himself a magician. He calls himself an illusionist. Mm-hmm. And he does incredible illusions that look real to all the world, appear to be real, but in reality, little baby was getting away from mommy and not getting her hand held by cars. I was a little concerned there. Almost had to drop the phone there and go take care of that.
No problem.
But these people are magics, magicians, illusionists. They're Merlin. They're trying to create a certain mindset in the people to accept that what they have put together is real, and that if you buy into that illusion, if I had gone to that show and come out of there believing that what I saw, or anybody that I took with me to go see it, saw was real, then we would have been delusional. And we would have bought into that falsely. Now, this illusionist does it within a show where people pay money to come see it. If he had not said he was an illusionist and tried to con everybody that what he was doing was the real thing, he'd probably be brought up on charges for fraud. Okay. So he probably has to, at some level, tell you that what he's doing is an illusion. These people are doing illusions and they're fraud. And unfortunately, if you buy into what they're selling you, you are technically delusional. You have bought into this and you're delusional for believing it. And that's why even the people around you that are trying to warn you and say stuff and question, they're not exactly wrong. Now, on other subject matter, some people might come back and look at, say, something like the Q operation or other things and try to apply that same standard. I would say that, yes, people do need to do their own research, come to their own conclusions, ask for divine assistance to know and understand what's real and what's not, and then live with those decisions. And some of the illusions are very, very good. But, for example, Hillary, when it was clear that she was losing to Trump in the 2016 presidential election, she sent her election guy, Podesta, a note. She said, "Is it time to play the alien card?" What? Yeah, the alien card. Some type of an illusion, a falsehood that people would believe in order to con them into certain actions and reactions that would favor her candidacy for the presidency or stop the election in some way till they could get control of the situation so she could win. Why? Because she was in danger of losing. And she wanted to play the alien card, which would be an illusion. Aliens weren't really going to land. They were going to make it look like it. Holographics, drama, something on a world scale. She didn't get her way. Why? Because she wasn't a big enough player. The players that were pushing her to the presidency in this grand scheme weren't ready to play that card yet. Is that out in our future somewhere? Yeah. If they could get away with it in those illusions, they would have included GESARA and NESARA. Unfortunately, Hillary didn't win. We didn't get the alien card yet. GESARA and NESARA aren't going to get pulled off the way we're going to. And by the way, that's not a bad thing because they didn't get other stuff they wanted to do along the way, including a nuke in Seattle, including on 11/3, a year before the election. They would have had us had a pandemic that started out of California, Southern California, and a radiological event that would have shut down LA and affected the whole world. That's what the thing on Wilshire Boulevard was about with the helicopters. They would have had numerous things, including GESARA and NESARA, over the last several years. And all of your listeners that may have had people that got involved in GESARA and NESARA, they would have been right. They would have got, some people would have got a bunch of money. Maybe a handful of your people would have got something. And in fact, part of the point was so you could end up crushing the economy of the whole world. Those people, if they had got the money, would have been participants in collapsing the Western economies focused on the United States using that currency. It wouldn't have bought what you thought it was going to do, and it wouldn't have done the beautiful things you thought it was going to do. It would have been part of the collapse, and you just would have not realized. You'd have been unknowing, willing participants in facilitating the collapse of the Western economies focused on the United States. Think about that.
Complete opposite of what the grand dream and that they're waiting for it to occur. That's a tough moment to live through, and I hope that everybody that's listening to this that is in this Dinar ZIM situation and so forth. I don't know how you unwind those things. It's above my pay grade at this moment, but I will say this: I would like to talk with you perhaps next month, Juan, at another episode about the QFS QRP digital world, um, which a lot about that, and then versus physical, tangible gold and silver. While you've identified the charade, if you will, the illusion here in this episode on this element of the NESARA. And by the way, folks, if you missed the first episode, go back and check it out. Juan covered about 7, 8, 9 different points relating to NESARA, whereas here we spoke on the ZIM and the dinar and all the elements surrounding that. And I think it's important that we did that. Another episode, I want to talk about QFS, QRP, the digital thing, its origins, its true intent, and that world where money's piling into right now because it's private and it's making money, so to speak, versus buying the old relic, the physical, tangible gold and silver bars and or coins in bullion, and then in the next episode, have you paint the picture, at least in the world according to Juan, what you think the system is that we will get to. Why? Because we're going to go somewhere, because we are approaching $40 trillion of debt, just federal. When you throw the states and the counties and the cities and we the people and all the debt, it's in the unknown quadrillions. And the fact is, regardless of what it is, money, based on what you've just talked about before, money isn't money anymore. It's debt. And that ended in 1913, as you alluded to. Everyone knows there's nothing federal about the Federal Reserve, and there is no reserve. In fact, there's all this unbelievable, unsustainable debt. So in another episode, I'd like to talk about where we think we're heading and put up a few more guardrails for people and bust a few more myths. Anyway, it's been great talking with you again, Juan. I wish I could share a glass of wine with you. I'm some soda water at this moment, but I'll be heading out with my fiance to really, it's an indoor-outdoor beautiful mall here on Koh Samui that has some place I like to go and have something to eat and drink. I'll be heading there in a moment. You also want to mention James Bond. You identified the car there. I forget which movie. I'm going to go find out. One of the James Bond movies, I'm going to say back in the 60s, more than likely, was filmed here, very close to where I am in the Andaman Sea, not far from the Gulf of Thailand, where I am right now. And we're going to be taking a private boat there. It's called James Bond Island, and we're going to go see that. I'll be running a pictorial on that on my other show. And
well, I can already tell you what the cars were. They were AMC, and in that particular time, and that was near the end of American Motor Company. They were trying hard to hold their own. It was shot in the early 70s. And they had the one car that you could put the wings on, and then it flew out of the thing, and with James Bond's assistant in the trunk, and then Good Night, and then you also had the little red one. I forget which model that's called, but small compact. I don't think it was the Gremlin. It was not. I think it might have been a Hornet. Yeah, it was Hornet. And
AMC, yep, made the Hornet. Yeah, that's right.
And it did the barrel roll, and had the police officer from the previous James Bond, Live and Let Die, from Louisiana, apparently on vacation there. You know what? Let me just add one thing, and I know people look. In order to get things into people's minds in a way that they can absorb and digest, using these movies as illustrations somewhat corny, bizarre as illustrations of what's really going on in the world is not wrong. Sometimes you just have to have sort of a point of reference. And that theater of a James Bond movie helps you to at least have some scale point of reference to consider, but what's the real world like? We are in a world of illusion.
Yes.
And theater. And what is we have to protect within our audience, John, is that our people don't become delusional themselves and help to unmask some of the cons that are being played on us individually and globally to con us into doing other people's bidding. The devil himself is a master illusionist. In the spy world, guys that I dealt with from a very early age, I didn't understand it for right off the bat. They always had a hand trick. They always had a hat trick in those days. You know, if everybody in Japan here wears hats, I got my hat. It's very common. So they have a hat trick. They'd have some sleight of hand that they knew how to do so well that even other spy masters would have a hard time catching what they were doing. They always had a new trick. And it might keep you alive at some critical moment. People are watching this while you're doing that. And that's the illusion in the spy world, the art of illusion to keep yourself alive. Very common. When you think of society, the captured aspect of our society, of our world, and people getting into control positions, including, I might add, with the vote, this illusion that the people that are there running the world, running America, are there fair and square, honestly, and yet they are conning us with the illusion in the lottery of life of having gotten there legitimately when they haven't, because you just don't understand the trick. You just don't realize they're using other technology to pull it off. It's a couple generations ahead of you, technically. And so you don't understand computers. You don't understand the way ballots, just a little different size, could end up registering the votes slightly differently by design. It looks the same. It just isn't the same. And then you're sold the lie. Even you're conned in a Ponzi scheme type situation where the most horrid aspect of a good Ponzi scheme is the people you've conned to play the game with you turn around and they trade their personal credibility, their personal relationships with all the people around them, that since they're doing it, it makes sense for the next guy to do it. And so the Ponzi part of it is the early adopters that come in. They see all this money they're going to make by bringing other people in and joining them. And they do another level of the pyramid till they're going to be finally at the top. Okay. They're finally going to have something with very little put in to get a huge reward. As they move up in the ranks, each layer is sucking in their friends, their relatives, their neighbors, and they're trading their personal goodwill, their personal credibility. Look, to anybody that's been conned in this way, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it costs friends and relationships.
Yeah.
It hurts you in ways that are almost undetectable. The evilness in it is just so great because it destroys people that never wanted to hurt people around them, where they wanted to help people around them, let them enjoy something, have a win with everybody else. And so you thought you were helping the people around you to protect themselves against the future by joining you. And you're an early adopter, and so you're helping them. You have the best intent. You had no ill will, but you were going to make a buck on it in the meantime. And you sucked other people into it. When it failed, the hardest part about it is that now the people you brought in are they're blind, they're lost, they're hurt. They can no longer trust you. You lose faith. A very Asian way of articulating it, and you're dishonored. And that's the horror side of the Ponzi scheme when it finally collapses. And all those people of goodwill with good intent who got everybody around them involved, now they've led the way to take them down. And the people that got the money, that put the con together, that were at the top from the very beginning, they're gone.
Yep. Oh, we've lost 107. Okay. If he comes back in, we'll conclude the program with Juan. I'll give Juan a couple of minutes to do so. This is John Chambers here in Thailand, and it's been an interesting discussion. Kicked off of the elements of NESARA GESARA, where I raised the question of the dinar and the ZIM, because it's a big issue, has been for many years, and a lot of people have invested in that. And I think, as I said in the beginning with Juan, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I think you can clearly see Juan's a thumbs down on the promise of all this wealth coming your way for the reasons he stated. We will discuss QFS, QRP, the digital world, the pros and cons of that, the true origins of that, and the world according to Juan, how he sees that playing out. I'll weigh in at that future program. I always like to personally invest in things I understand, things I can control, and things that are proven and time tested. And one might say that gold and silver could be considered God's money. And I'll get into all of that at another time. Thank you all for joining us. Juan has not tapped back in. I know what's occurred. His cell phone has died. But thank you, Juan, for sharing all your time and information with us. And thank you all for watching Intel and Insights with Juan 07. Follow my work at johnmichaelchambers.com, as well as my Rumble channel. And I've got a new website coming out within the next 60 days, a complete overhaul, as my direction is going to be shifting, as my awareness is shifting, as the war is shifting. And I think you're going to be very much pleased with where I'm going to take us on this journey. So it's valuable, and find comfort in my voice, speaking with my voice. I want you to speak with your voice as well. We are at war, and victory is ours. Thank you all very much for joining me.